just to remind you that this is going to be recorded, so you can listen to it online. That recording will be available for future record on the council's YouTube channel. We're just going to tweak slightly the agenda, so we're going to be having parking first, and then we'll have a police update later. So Wasim, as you probably obviously know, that we're having quite a lot of parking issues within the inner city walls. So there's literally too many cars on the road and there's not enough parking facilities. So this is where we've also got Gary on the call as well, and Kevin, how we're going to move forward. So I don't know if you want to say something first, or do you want to listen to resident concerns? It's up to you. How do you want to?
Yeah, I'll just quickly respond to what you've said, and you know, you're absolutely right. We've got a situation where in some households there's no cars whatsoever, and then there's some households where you've got 4 people living and there's 5 cars allocated. I don't know how that works, but that's the reality of the challenge that we've got. I've got that challenge in Lascelles in my neighbourhood, and we know we've got that challenge across many inner city areas. Obviously, the council's policy is moving forward. We've obviously adopted the Birmingham Transport Plan, which looks at how we can get more people using sustainable modes of transport. And you know, cars will always have a role in our city, but probably reducing the over-reliance of cars. Yeah, I've been in meetings today with officers looking at how we can develop a strategy for the next 4 years and look at the key projects that we can deliver to improve the reliability of public transport, to look at walking and cycling as viable options for people right across the city. And the other thing I'll say is it's not just parking in some of the inner city roads. It's the traffic flow. When you've got cars parked on both sides of the road without any gaps between them, and you've got cars passing through in opposite directions, it causes a lot of tension. And I've had particular issues in my ward outside schools, where in the morning and the afternoon, when you got those tight roads and children with their parents also walking to school, and you got cars going in opposite directions, that creates a problem. So I've trialled one-way circulars in my ward, which are working really well. They help with traffic flow. They don't, you know, there's no real solution. That isn't a viable solution for parking. But if you've got particular areas where, you know, I know there's a lot of illegal parking that's taking place on pavements. We're hoping very soon that there'll be extra powers devolved down from government through a bill that's currently being processed to local authorities, where we can take firmer action alongside the police in tackling those people who are parking illegally. Particularly, you know, I've seen pictures on social media where you've got cars parked 3/4 onto the pavement. How is somebody in a wheelchair, a disabled person in a wheelchair, going to get past? How is a mother going to get past with her pram and her child? It's just not possible. So we've got to look at a whole host of things. I think one of the key things, obviously, is looking at, just to re-emphasize, looking at how we can make public transport a more viable option for people, so some people can give up on their private cars. Chair, have you frozen? Imran, if you got your hand up, it's probably a question for me. I think Shabrana's frozen, so do you want to fire away? Shabrana, are you back? You're on mute, Shabrana.
Sorry, I think I am. Am I back?
Yeah, you are back now.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. I don't know what happened there. Just 2 points before I take questions. I mean, parking on pavements is illegal as it is. So why do we need any extra powers as it is? According to the highway code, you're not even supposed to have any tyres or any wheels on the pavement, and yet we've got literally a whole car parked outside of schools. So why do we need extra powers in there? And then, you know, these dropped curves that we do have for pedestrians to cross, for wheelchairs and pushchair users. If they are blocked, who does that lie with? Does that lie with the police, or does that lie with our parking enforcement?
Kevin, do you want to pick those two questions up? You're best placed to answer them, I think.
Yeah, if you want to just comment on a couple of points there, Chair, I think, yeah, so just on the obstructive parking piece that you raised, yeah, so that's what it's known as. So people parking on footways, essentially. Yeah, highway code is one thing, the law's another. So you're quite right, highway code says you shouldn't park your wheels on the footway, you shouldn't obstruct the footway. But unfortunately, that's not something that we can enforce. And the highway code's essentially the document, the piece of advice that you do to get you through your test. It's not something that's enforceable. So the issue comes with obstructive parking. So effectively, we've got powers to devolve, as the cabinet members said. At the moment, things may change next year, but at the moment, the only powers we've got is for what's called civil parking enforcement, which is where you've got those effectively restrictions, double yellow lines, single yellow lines, those sort of things. They're the only areas where we can go and enforce with the powers that we've currently got. Cabinet members quite right. There's talk again about looking to devolve those powers similar to what they've got in London, where so London, again, councils have got those powers to go and enforce obstructive parking where there are no restrictions, but all the other authorities in the country don't have those. It's been mooted for many years that those would get devolved to every other council, and again, it's being talked about for next year. So fingers crossed, as the cabinet member said, if those powers come to us, that's something we can then go and start to enforce, I think. And then just on the drop curves piece, yeah, so the one, I suppose, exception to what I've said about where there's lines is we do have powers to enforce against drop curves. So whether that's drop curves for people's drives or whether that's drop curves for the pedestrian crossings that you mentioned for wheelchairs and pushchairs, yes, we can enforce, we can give people tickets for parking over those as well. So we do have the power to do that.
Okay, thank you. Imran, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, thanks for joining us, Councillor Wasim, Gary Dalton, Kevin Hicks. I've got a few questions. I think Wasim has sort of briefed on some of them, but I'm just going to say them anyway. Obviously, Wasim, recently we've had the clear air zone put in the city of Birmingham. Some of the things that we're being affected by is vehicles are no longer going in the city and they're staying put on our streets. Meaning that we've got more vehicles staying put than actually driving out towards the city. A few years ago, I recall, I think it was one of your advisors saying about more funding coming into local inner city areas that was going to be funded. I mean, what's happening with that? Is there any plans of having anything within the inner city areas for parking itself? Another question is this is going to go on to the e-scooters as well. Obviously, that is something that we're being affected by. Firstly, is the safety of e-scooters with riders not having helmets. I mean, is that anything that you have thought about further as well, be it on the road? And we're seeing a lot more of them on pavements, not just roads. So that's something that sort of needs to be addressed. And disability parking. Okay, I know we have disability bays. Unfortunately, some of them are being used. I mean, the ones that are being used correctly, fine. But you have a lot that actually people that have been deceased, people are still taking ownership over them disabled bays. So what are you guys doing to to sort of get rid of them bays, because them bays are still there and people are still occupying them despite the official person that badge holder is no longer here. Okay, I'm going to leave them few questions with you guys. Thanks.
Thanks. Siobhan, do you want me to respond to them?
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay, so in terms of the clean air zone, we're introducing some control parking zones within the clean air zone, which are being supported by government financially. We did have a bid into government right at the outset to introduce some control parking zones around the perimeter of the clean air zone, because what I don't want is the neighbours just outside the clean air zone to become car parks for people who work in the clean air zone or shop in the clean air zone. They dump their car just outside because it's non-compliant, then walk in. We'll continue to monitor the situation, but I think what you were saying was there's less vehicles that are shifting from residents that live in the clean air zone rather than people who work in the clean air zone coming and dropping their vehicles there. So we'll continue to monitor that, and we're more than happy to ensure that there's some monitoring taking place of Sparkbrook and Balsall Heath East ward to see what the potential impact has been there. In terms of the e-scooters, I share the concerns of Imran. We always got a pilot running. We were hoping the government would have made a decision whether they're going to regulate e-scooters or not. We think the indication is that e-scooters will be regulated. We don't know when. So we've had to extend the pilot with Voi at the moment. I've been meeting with a number of different companies that provide the e-scooter rental scheme, including Voi, the operator we're on, and looking at how moving forward we can manage whatever the government guidelines are, whether we can go above and beyond that is definitely possible. So looking at helmets for the future is something that I think Birmingham are more than likely to support. Pavement riding is the single one, biggest issue when it comes to e-scooters. If you've got an e-scooter, you're traveling at 15.5 miles per hour on a pavement, that is dangerous. So when we do re-procure the contract, I've made it very, very clear to each and every provider that we've spoken to, they need to find a solution to this. They need to find it. We will support them to decide what the best solution is. And if I'm being absolutely candid with you, moving forward, the long-term partner who will provide this scheme would most likely be the one that's got the best solution to pavement riding. In terms of disabled parking, Gary Dalton's here, the local engineer, and I know they get requests all the time from elected councillors and residents where there are disabled bays which are no longer required, whether somebody's passed away or moved on who originally gave the evidence. So if you've got any disabled bays that you think are no longer required, then please pass those details to Gary, and Gary will write to the household and asking them for evidence that somebody who continues to be disabled lives at those premises. I've had a few taken away in Lascelles simply for that particular reason. I also know that we've had a rise in illegal and unregulated disabled bays across the city. So if you've got any evidence of that, please do let us know. We will take swift action against them.
Before I bring Imran back in, some other local authorities regulate disabled bays. So if you was to park in a disabled bay, you would have to display your badge at all times, and it needs to be registered to that car only. So we don't have. I know ours is not enforced or regulated. I know, Kevin, I think I did have a discussion with you at some point. You did say there may be something in the future, but nothing just yet. But I just think we need to crack down, because in our inner city wards, if there's a disabled bay and you can't park your car there, it's going to cause havoc. You either won't have your car back, or your tires will be just for parking there, and that defeats the whole purpose of what disabled bays are. The courtesy bays for the people who can't walk that far. So there, but they're being abused. They're being heavily abused in our inner city wards. So that's what I think. I don't personally have a problem with them, but I just want them to be used by the person who is designated for, and not for somebody to call it their own personal drive.
What I will do is speak to the local engineering service that Gary's part of, and see if there are sufficient issues across the city. We'll be more than happy to do a piece of work to see how we can ensure that disabled bays are not being abused and are being used for the correct purposes. I haven't had a great amount of lobbying for this being an issue across the city. I'm not saying it isn't, but we'll speak to the local engineers to get a citywide perspective, and if required, come back to you.
Well, if you want, you can do a trial period or a trial in Sparkbrook. We're willing to help you. We can give you enough evidence. We know exactly what goes on here. But Imran.
Okay, that was my last point. Was about the safety of e-scooter riders. It should be mandatory for them to wear a helmet. That's what I'm going to say.
So Imran, I agree with you, but I don't know where the government's position is on this, and that's why it's really important that when they come forward with a decision, if they're going to regulate them or not, and then if they do, which is likely, they need to ensure that they've got the right level of safety measures. I'll be really interested to see how they will, what's the position of what powers local authorities have when we commission out our partners or regional authorities to increase safety measures within within the contract. I'm also very clear and support the position taken by the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office with respect to private e-scooters. So the VOI e-scooters, there's technology on that, which means, I'll give you an example. If you go into the city centre, the geofencing technology means when you're in a pedestrianised area, you can't go faster than 5 miles per hour, which is walking speed. If you've got a pure electric or any other private e-scooter that you've purchased for next to nothing, there's no limitations on that. You can, because there's no, it's not linked to any geofencing technology or what have you. So I'm very keen that the government outlaws the sale of private e-scooters as soon as possible.
Thank you. Just to upon your question about e-scooters and helmets, they're not even mandatory for cyclists. So if we are, whether it might be a good idea if we can lobby for both of them, because we know how important helmets are. Okay, Ash, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, talking about cycling, it's exactly my question. As somebody who is a keen cycling, I do understand the need to try to obviously reduce the carbon emissions across the city and the purpose for having a clean air zone, but also ensuring that infrastructure is there for cycling. Even though I know that there is infrastructure being put in, however, the problem is, and the example I'm going to give, which I'll probably say is a key test case, is the Ladypool Road. I know it doesn't fall into, it's just literally on the borderline of Moseley and Sparkbrook, but you have the cycling lane there that doesn't really get used for cycling, apart from cars parking there whilst the people and families go to restaurants. I mean, the thing is, it's all good and well trying to say, look, we have this, we need this infrastructure and we are putting it into place. If, of course, it becomes limited where cyclists can't use it, surely there needs to be more done. And as again, when I do say it needs to be a test case, because it's far too often we have consistent complaints about that area. And, you know, if we could beat and win and clear up the Ladypool Road and make it a viable and a cycling route that is enforced and is kept clear for cyclists, you know, we could win it in other places. So if we can't do it there, I find it quite difficult how we're going to do it in other places.
Ash, watch this space with respect to the Ladypool Road issues, because myself, Kevin, and Phil Edwards were in a meeting, was it last week, Kevin? Where it was last
Tuesday.
Last Tuesday, where we discussed that exact issue. And you're right, it is a test case for us. I get a lot of social media contact with respect to this issue. So bear with us, we will resolve that. And you're right, there's no point putting infrastructure in that's then not available for cyclists. It's counterproductive.
But there is to the point that there is a consultation at the moment, so it's 3-week consultation, so which on the 18th of November. So after 3 weeks, we should know more. So that's hopefully fingers crossed on that one. Right, okay. I've got Pravin and then Ted.
Hi. Right, talking about these e-scooters and cycling. I'm all for cycling and e-scooters for young people. Yeah, for people like me at the age of 73, it's difficult to get on the e-scooter, right? Let alone hold one. The point I'm trying to make here is only about 3 days, I was talking to Imran about it. About 3 days ago, I was on the footpath and this e-scooter person bumped into me, right? Nearly knocked me over. Okay. How do we complain about this, right? Because one, that person doesn't have a license plate or anything like that. So we don't know who that person is. Okay. That's one. Secondly, insurance-wise, how are we covered? Because if I have some accident with an e-scooter or somebody else driving it, yeah, and I break my leg or something like that, how am I covered, right, with insurance? Okay, and that also goes for the cyclists who are riding bicycles on the pavements, right? In Sparkbrook, we have got an umpteen times, I think I've spoken to Shabrana and Imran and Ashraf as well about these issues about cycling and e-scooters on pavements, and people well, it's not fair for disabled people trying to walk, and right. So are they, those are my two questions actually. What insurance covers we got?
Okay, thank you, Pravin, for your points. As I said earlier, payment is the biggest challenge that we've got in the e-scooter. Ted, I think, is that some sound coming back from Ted? Yeah, thanks, Ted. Sorry. So the challenge is how we can moving forward we can stop people using e-scooters on pavements, because pavement should be for people to walk upon, and we absolutely want to support people to walk more in our city, and having e-scooters, particularly as you said, gave a live example of how somebody nearly hit into you, or might have been hit into you, I think you said. The Voi e-scooters are recognisable because they'll have a number written on them. We ensured that every single Voi e-scooter had numbers on them, and through that number plate, we know who's using which e-scooter at which particular time, because every e-scooter user on the Voi scheme, they have to have a driving license and a debit or credit card linked to that particular scooter. The Voi users are also insured through the Voi scheme, and obviously if there's an accident, then there's insurance cover to protect people to pay that out. However, the challenge is, it's a lot of the times the e-scooters that are causing the problem are not the Voi e-scooters, but they're private e-scooters. And that's why I said earlier, I support, Tom McNeil, the Assistant Police and Crime Commissioner, has been very vocal about encouraging the government to get private e-scooters, the sale of private e-scooters banned, because there's absolutely no regulation whatsoever. They are illegal. They should not be on the roads. They should not be on the highways. They should not be on the pavements, because they're not allowed. The only e-scooters that are actually allowed on the highway, not on the pavement, on the highway, are the e-scooters that are part of the pilot. So I know that West Midlands Police have taken dozens of private e-scooters off the road. They've confiscated them. Moving forward, as I suspect the government will regulate e-scooters through the scheme, through the trial thing, I'm asking for the government, and we're making representation that the private e-scooters, when the voice schemes and similar schemes are regulated, private e-scooters are absolutely banned. There should be no grey area, because there could be no regulation, there could be no monitoring, there could be no evaluation, there could be no identifying who's hit into somebody or who's driving them recklessly. And the final thing I'll just say, I want to re-emphasize this point, because this is the most important point as far as I'm concerned. Moving forward, the provider that addresses the issue of pavement riding will be absolutely the key company and the key provider that we want to work with. That there is absolutely no other way about it. There's other issues. There's issues of e-scooters being left lying around. There's all sorts of other issues. There's helmets that Ash and Imran referred to, and Shabrana supported too. But the biggest issue that I hear about is people riding those e-scooters on pavements, and we need to get them on pavements.
Thank you. Ted, go
Well, yeah, it's a point really, and then a question. I think my first point would be, I was interested to hear that you said that your e-scooters are limited to 5 miles an hour on pedestrian areas in the city centre, because I think if you ever stood in New Street with some of those, and I mean some of the city ones, whizzing up and down, I know there's a bit of road in the middle of New Street, but in the pedestrian areas, I reckon they travel more than 5 miles an hour. on there. So you know, it'd be interesting if you had a look at that and explored that a bit further. And coming back to the cycle lane on Ladypool Road, which I know has already been discussed, and you said you watch this space. And yes, it is predominantly a car park, not just for people, you know, going to the venues at night and stuff like that, but the whole area, because, and I don't know if it's been monitored, but that whole issue about that one-way system, and the parking that's on there now, but the increased parking along Taunton Road and Brighton Road, which sort of spreads out from that Ladypool Road junction, has just got, in the majority of evenings, has just got ridiculous over the past 15 months and stuff like that. And that was even during lockdown and when things had been locked down and everything like that. So, you know, ambulances trying to get through, cars are parked on pavements all the way up Brighton Road, and stuff like that. So appreciating that those venues are crucial to that economy and there are businesses there and stuff like that, but there is a major issue around car parking within that area.
Thanks, Ted. So in terms of the e-scooters, the Voi e-scooters in pedestrianised areas in the city centre going above 5 miles per hour, that shouldn't be happening because the geofencing technology should disable that. But I will get that looked into, and I'll come back to you through your local councillors. In fact, I'll share with Shabrana and Councillor Mohammed Azim the areas where that geofencing technology in pedestrianised areas exists.
Yep.
In terms of the issues of parking, that particular area of Ladypool Road has got very popular over recent years. I still remember that particular bit being not as popular as the other areas, but in recent years with a few outlets such as Toro's and one or two other restaurants there, it's the go-to place on Ladypool Road, and we obviously want to support the local economy, but not at the hindrance of other people, particularly local residents that live there. So I'll be more than happy to work with the local councillors to look at how we can try and address that. Obviously, as a city council, we've got a very keen focus on ensuring more people are using public transport, but public transport in Birmingham late at night is nowhere near where it should be. It's not fit for purpose. And that's why a lot of people end up using private cars to travel late at night, and particularly when they go out as families. But we're more than happy to look at what we can do to address the impact onto Brighton Road and Taunton Road that you referred to. I know there are a couple of car parks there, but they do have limited space there. They're always full, so it's that people are having to rely on street parking as a means. And sometimes people end up parking illegally on those on-street parking locations, and I fear when people do need the emergency services need to get through, that does create challenges. So if I think that's on the border of Sparkbrook, Balsall Heath East, and Moseley. Am I right? So I'd be happy to go for a walkabout with all 4 members. And any other community activists that want to come along. I'm sure the local engineers will be part of that, and just explore, just see what we can do. It's a very, very important strategic area of the city, and we want it to the Balti Triangle to get bigger and better and more economically productive. But we also need to be addressing the challenges that come alongside that too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
With the local police team last week, and the issues that we faced was horrendous, and they literally had no care whatsoever. The drivers didn't. So that would be more welcome, and I think we've done a couple of site visits anyway on Ladypool Road. So I'll arrange something, probably, I don't know how we feel about end of the year or probably early next year. I'll arrange something diary dependent. Imran?
Thank you, Councillor. This is on a, not obviously, I think we've bored you with parking and stuff like that and e-scooters. This is about our street lighting. Okay, I'm sure Councillor Shabrana has raised this with you on a numerous of times. Obviously on our street, on our road, we've had, on both sides of the road, we've had street lighting. Since we've had the LED ones, they've only put them on one side of the road. If you come to our street now, one side of the road is pitch dark. How is that justified? We've been fighting for this for a long time. So I welcome Wasim Jafar to come to my road and at night and just look at the light quality of my street. That's all. Thank you.
So I have been on your road late at night, and you are right. We are in an unacceptable place there. Kevin, is there an explanation why Amy did this? And can we get Keir to put this right?
I think sometimes with the well, two things. LEDs obviously give that brighter street light. So they're part of the rollout was that, technically speaking, on lighting levels, you should need less LED lights to get the same amount of light. The other issue is that sometimes we can't get down one side of a street due to utilities being in there, and that's usually what happens when lighting design for new schemes come along and we end up going down one side of the road. That's because there'll be a gas main, a water main, or something on the other footway that we can't put the new columns in. So I'm guessing that's probably what's happened in this particular case. If you give me the road location, I can certainly get somebody to have a look at that and see what the barrier was to it. As you say, one of the problems it then raises and causes is you have what's called this shadowing effect. So that effectively anything that's parked, whether it's a van or on the other side of the road, effectively then blocks any of that light coming from the lights on the opposite footway. So yeah, we do recognise that's the problem, but that's usually what's caused it, and that's usually the design, if you like, the design flaw that's ended up with us just putting down columns down one side rather than dotting them down both sides of the footway. But I can take that away and have a look at it if you give me the location, Imran, and so we'll come back to you again through Councillor Hussain.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. It's all right. I'm only saying this because previously our lightings were on both sides of the road. So if they were already presently there, this time round, what they've done, they've pushed the lightings back. So by pushing it back, you're right. If they were left forward as they were before, then I would take that point on board. But what they've done, they've pushed the lights back. That's actually not left enough light for the other side of the road. I mean, Shabrana can update you what road it is, and take it from there. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, to flip on that, I think we were told because the road he's talking about is Swallows Road, you've got alleyways and they've got street lights. So therefore, on the opposite side, they refused to put street columns on them. And we did get Amy, and they did come out and did do a site visit. If I can dig up the old emails, I will. If not, I'll just send you a generic email. Right. Don't see any more hands up. Okay, I've got sorry, Pravin. Before I bring, all right, I'll bring Pravin in quickly. Pravin. Pravin.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can now. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. Wasim,
Pravin, you gone onto mute. We can't hear you.
Oh, he's on mute again. Right, okay, while Pravin's trying to sort that out, there's made a couple of notes. One, I know probably I was expecting Parkins to turn up, but they're not here. But whether we'll see me if you want to take this comment back.
So
About
who are you expecting to turn up?
civil servants, Organa Norfolk, I can't say his name. He was supposed to be turning today.
Kevin's.
Yes.
Oh,
He
right.
works for me.
You got the boss.
Right.
You got the boss turned up. So.
All right. Okay, that's fine. Okay. What I was going to suggest is, because when we did our site visit last week, can our civil enforcement officers, because their job is so dangerous, especially in that inner city ward, is it not possible we can provide them with cameras and have some sort of an access to the police in emergency situations. I mean, it's protection for them, and they'll feel more safe and more confident doing their job. That was one point, and then probably the last point I would have made is we're seeing what's the next steps and what's the way forward. I mean, how can we? Is there residential parking schemes, because we're on the border of the clean air zone? How are we going to tackle going forward?
Kevin, do you want to go first on the cameras?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, Councillor Hussain, was that about sort of body-worn cameras for the? Yeah. So yeah, it's been a bone of contention for a few years with the civil enforcement officers. So we employ the company called NSL, who are a contracted company for us. NSL run up, I think, roughly probably 60–70% of all the parking enforcement for local authorities across the country, and different authorities have approached the issue of body-worn cameras in different ways. I think so. NSL have trialled body-worn cameras, particularly in some of the London boroughs, and as you say, there's some advantages to them in terms of certainly an evidence base when if they do get assaulted or if they do get verbal assaults, they then have evidence they can back up for to support a potential prosecution is one advantage. There's a bit of a double-edged sword that then comes in terms of whether they act as a deterrent. So you've got to visually show that the camera's on, and then you've got to flip it down to show when it's actually operating as well as part of the regulations, the sort of information and commissioner and data protection side of the requirements for the cameras. So sometimes that acts as a deterrent to people in terms of if they want to be aggressive to the officers. On other occasions, when they've been trialled elsewhere in the country, that's actually acted as a catalyst. So it's actually made the situation worse. People turn up grabbing for the cameras, and then the assault tends to escalate. So what NSL have said within Birmingham, and they do look at this at each one individually across each one of their contracts, they are going to trial the use of body-worn cameras on their staff within Birmingham. Given some of the problems that we've had over the past sort of 12–18 months, a very notable one where it made the media about the enforcement officer getting dragged off his scooter and attacked. So they are trialling the use of body-worn cameras on some of their staff now in Birmingham, and it'll be a case of, well, let's see how that goes. Is it a case of it acts as a deterrent and it reduces that, or it provides the evidence base that it should, or does it act as, say, a potentially catalyst for additional aggression, if you like? But yeah, so they are going to try it, Councillor Hussain, and that should help. And just in terms of their contact with the police, so all the CEOs have a radio. The radio that they have with them has a red button on it. If they do get into a situation, they can press the red button. There's a call they can make back to the control centre, which is in the city centre, and they will get in touch with the police to get out there as a 999 call. So again, there is a means of ensuring that we've got police support when they get into trouble. And on a lot of occasions, as you might know, we do joint operations with the police anyway in some areas to ensure that we're in areas where we know there's a history of aggression and potential assaults. We'll take the police with us on joint operations very often. So there is that sort of very strong link with the police, with the civil enforcement officers.
And Shabrana, the question to me about where now, I get a lot of requests for controlled parking zones. I had a request last night in a meeting that was in Moseley. Implementing, developing and delivering controlled parking zones are very, very challenging. They're extremely expensive. We've been working for years on some controlled parking zone schemes around the QE hospital. I was going to say the new QE hospital, but it's been there for over 10 years now. And I was in meetings today with officers because a lot of elected members and residents are getting frustrated at the lack of progress, because we get a considerable amount of objections. You can never get 100% support or anywhere near that from residents, and trying to then deliver and keep people happy is not easy, and it's very expensive. I'm more than keen to explore any particular issues that you think the Clean Air Zone has created on Sparkbrook and Balsall Heath East. I'm yet to hear about them in terms of proper evidence that this has been a particular issue. I've been talking to some communities in Nechells, which are a bit closer there, as I said earlier, and I've always said, I don't want neighbourhoods just outside the clean air zone to become car parks. So we're more than happy to look into that if there are particular issues. But I think the key way to address the parking issues is to make public transport more attractive to citizens. Getting the mayor to bring the tram service on back to running would help. Getting the mayor to improve the local train service would really help. Getting the mayor to get some more money off the government to expand the tram service so it goes to the airport. If it goes to the airport, it's going to go through the east of Birmingham. It'll be a massive game changer for communities, and particularly in the east of Birmingham. I know that the 3 Labour MPs for East Birmingham, Jack Dromey, Liam Byrne and Jess Phillips, met with the Secretary of State last week to explore how we can find a package to bring that about. It's a massive scheme. Even if we've got the funding tomorrow, it'll probably take 5 years to deliver that. But let's try and secure the resources to make that happen, because that'd be the biggest game changer. So if you improve public transport and people will then be less reliable on private cars, reduce the ownership of cars, and hopefully that will free up space for people that do need cars. And there are people in our communities who will always need access to cars. If you're disabled, if you've got accessibility issues, if you've got 2 children to drop off to the local school and they get to work and back, you're going to need a car. So it's about ensuring that we've got a balance between car use and public transport use and walking, cycling, e-scooters and everything else. Shabrana frozen again?
It sounds like it.
Yeah, I think she's back now, isn't she? Shabrana, are you back?
My internet's really bad. 2 quick points before I take Imran and Shafiq in. Is it possible to even think about and consider low traffic neighbourhoods on Liverpool Road? I'm just going to throw it out there, so I'll leave you guys to ponder over. And talking of public transport, I use the trains a lot. And every time I need, obviously we have very limited time, so I need to make sure my train turns up. But for whatever reason my train turns up, so I'm always have to wait at least 14 minutes for the next train. So, it's all quicker walking or getting a taxi, but that defeats the purpose of public transport. So Wasima, please, I do urge you to get more transport in, because we are working quite closely with the small train station as well. So my trains are always cancelled or delayed, so I always have to catch the later one. Imran and Shafiq, because Wasim has to go. So Imran, very quickly, and then Shafiq.
Okay, this is just a quick point to Wasim. I know you've got a pilot scheme taking place in Kings Heath and Bourneville about these plant pots being put in the road to stop vehicles crossing them. I'm not going to say it's probably ideal for that to put in Sparkbrook, but there have been residents that actually are sort of more in support of that as well, because their roads have become rat runs. Any possibilities probably for us to suggest anything like that moving forward?
Okay, do you want to take Shafiq and then I can respond in closing to all the comments?
Shafiq?
Hi, Wasim. Very quickly, I know you actually were saying when you spoke that you're looking for anecdotal evidence of whether the neighbourhoods are becoming car parks next to the city centre. Right now, it's very difficult to tell how much impact the CAS is actually having, because there is so much road work and traffic is sort of so backed up. Anderton Road is always got a heavy load of traffic on it, because on Addington Road, on one state, at one corner, you may have actually realized is actually very difficult for 2 cars to pass. So you've got lorries and all sorts of things now detouring onto Addington Road, and there are actually cars now parked. I can't say this is all due to the CAS, but there are cars parked in parts of Sydenham Road and Anderton Road towards the top at the Golden Hill roundabout side, where we've never had many cars parked there. So it is actually causing an issue, but right now, because of all the road works and everything else, it's very difficult to narrow it down and say totally the CAS is to blame. I don't know how much of this additional traffic, driving through the neighborhoods is actually part of the CAS, or how much is it just part of all this continuous cycle of roadworks or utility works or something? Because it seems like in Sparkbrook, Small Heaths, Spark Hill, there has been a continuous cycle for 5 years of digging up roads, then digging up roads again, and then digging up roads again. So it's difficult to narrow. All I'm saying is it's difficult to narrow it down to CAS until this horrendous cycle stops.
Okay, with your permission, Shabrana, I'll quickly respond to some of the questions. So, a low traffic neighbourhood on Ladypool Road, and Imran's suggestion, I think, was similar to that. Ash's face was a delight when Imran and Shabrana were suggesting a low traffic neighbourhood, because I know Ash has to run the election campaigns, but I think there's a lot of positives that will come out of the low traffic neighbourhood in Kings Heath and Moseley, and there'll be a lot of lessons for all of us to learn, and we'll hopefully roll that out in other areas. I think the key thing is we want to make our streets safer for all, particularly the young and the old. I think we want to reduce rat running wherever possible, and ensure that residential roads are being used for their primary purpose, which is for the people that live there or deliveries to those individuals. Shafiq, we have got a lot of work taking place. We've had the benefit of the investment through the Commonwealth Games in the north of the city, and some aspects in the east of the city with the bus rapid transit that's going through all the way to the airport. That project will be complete very, very soon. It is a big project. There are also a lot of utility works taking place right across the city too. And in the coming months, you'll see quite a bit of road resurfacing taking place, which is really important, because I'm surprised potholes hasn't come up during the course of this conversation, but that continues to be a challenge. So with all this investment and all this change, you do get issues, and we clearly have a lot of issues across the city, but we're very confident that a lot of those projects will be complete in the very, very near future, and people can move about. I think you're right. It's not just the traffic. There's obviously been a change of how people live their lives because of the pandemic. So today is 6 months since the launch of the Clean Air Zone, and it's a big milestone today. But we can't say for definite what the real impact, positive or negative, has been because of the Clean Air Zone, because there's so much change happening in the way we live our lives. But as things start to settle down, as we start to address the challenges of the pandemic, and there are real genuine issues still with the pandemic, and the major projects in the north of the A34 and the A45 start to complete, we will see how that is. I'm confident that the Clean Air Zone will be a success. Otherwise, I wouldn't have championed it. I think it's really important, but it's a start. We need to ensure that we've got other policies coming forward in every neighbourhood in the city which tackle the issue of air pollution, reverse health inequalities in every neighbourhood. So we've got people, young and old, particularly living healthier and longer lives. Chair, I've got a very important football game to go to.
Yeah, that's
Good luck.
yeah, that's fine. Okay. Any more questions? If we've got any more questions, I'll just feed them to you and Kevin and Gary, and we'll set up some sort of a meeting, depending diary meeting, sometime to do a site visit on Ladypool Road. So thank you, Wasim, Gary, and Kevin.
Thank you all for your support, challenge,
Yeah,
questions, comments.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thanks, Chair.
Bye-bye.
Thanks all. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you. Right, okay, we were supposed to be having a police update from the police, but they're not online. So I can just give you a very quick update on a couple of issues. Like, one of the issues we probably got is fly tipping, and we were promised that we will be getting some CCTV cameras. So I did get a quick update from forgot his name, John O'Shea, that's it, the cabinet member, and he has said to me that I'm going to be, an officer is going to be assigned in the next couple of weeks, and the cameras are all ready to be deployed, but we just need to sort out a couple of legal stuff. So in a couple of weeks' time, we should be getting some CCTV cameras. But obviously, I won't be able to tell you where they're going to be located. Defeats the purpose of naming and shaming people. So we are supposed to be getting cameras in a couple of weeks. Well, I will be getting an officer in a couple of weeks' time who will be telling me where our cameras are going to be going. That's one of the, I know we've kind of already briefly touched upon Ladypool Road, the cycle lane. At the moment, not quite sure if you all know the whole, I'll just give you a quick update. Officially, it was a temporary TRO, which was just literally imposed upon us. It was a trial temporary experiment, which the transport decided to do. Then it got, that was an 18-month temporary trial thing. Then we were asked, they went out for consultation to make it permanent. Now it's been accepted and now it is definitely a permanent one. But now they need to go back out to consultation to just change the traffic lights and to make it an official bike lane. So 3 week consultation, so I will know more probably mid-December and I will update you all then. That's the two main issues that I think I really want to update everybody on. I don't know if Councillor Zine wants to add anything on. I'll take Ash while he's trying to get on. Ash, you've got your hand raised. Maybe not. Right, okay. I don't know what we've got.
Sorry.
Okay, there you are.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute, wasn't I? Just talking. So yeah, it was regarding the flight CCTV cameras, and I mean, I know you said that, you know, at this same moment about the location, but I mean, the question I was going to ask is that, do you know how many we're going to get, and how are the sites going to be chosen? Is it going to be based on evidence, or will it be based on you know, councillor intelligence or local intelligence? Because the thing is that if we do have these kind of you know, assets, we need to make sure we have them in the best places where they're going to be the most effective.
Right, not quite sure exactly where and how they're going to be placed. I haven't been allocated an officer just yet, but once I do, we will have that conversation. And then I'll know exactly how much I'll be getting. But bear in mind, they're not here to stay. They're just going to be rotating between the 6 wards. Yeah, I'm sure it's 5 or 6 wards. Okay, so it will be rotating. We're not quite sure exactly how it's going to work. So like I said, it's never been done before. So it's going to be a learning curve for all of us. Okay, I don't see any more hands up. I've got a provincially booked in. Kay, can you remember what date it is? I know we've got a provincial date booked in for February for our next ward tasking meeting. If anyone's got anything that they want to raise, we've talked about flight ticket, we've talked about parking. They were the two main hot topics that we had. Is there anything that anybody wants to discuss?
Yeah, it's the 15th of February, Councillor Hussain, that you've got penciled in for the next meeting.
What's that? Yeah. Yeah, what date is that?
15th of February.
Sometime in February, I do know that.
Yeah, it's the 15th.
Okay, brilliant. So yeah, provincially we've got that booked in. We're not quite sure what's happening with if we're going to be having face-to-face meetings. It all just depends on the variant and the government. So I'm not quite sure what everybody wants to discuss next. So if you've got any, I was just going to wait till around about January time, and depending on what's happening in January time, and then pick a subject. Or I'll just leave it out there for you guys. You can just send me a quick to add onto the agenda next.
I think we've lost you.
Sorry, I'm not quite sure how much you heard that because I dropped out and dropped back in again. So I'm not quite sure how much did you hear.
Just
Ash, can you just tell me where I dropped off from?
Just where you said that if there's any item, just send them to you, and you'll look at the agenda.
Or we can add it onto the agenda. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, does anybody have any other business or want to raise anything while you've got the platform? Not seeing any hands up. No, so thank you very much, everybody. I know it's probably a bit too early, but I may not see you all. But if I don't see you all, hope you all have a lovely Christmas and hopefully see you all soon. So thank you and goodbye, everyone.
Thanks very much. Good
Bye.
night.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Good night.